Plane en route to Toronto is forced to declare an emergency. The plane circled near the airport in Madrid, Spain for hours, burning off fuel, and at one point a fighter jet flew alongside, assessing damage to the aircraft. Greg Ross joins us live now from Pearson Airport. And Greg, no doubt some really tense moments for those passengers.
Absolutely, Dwight. Air Canada has confirmed that this was a Boeing 67 and it was carrying 128 passengers and 8 flight crew. It took off at about 3 p.m. Madrid time. It was headed for here in Toronto at Pearson Airport. But about a half an hour after takeoff, the pilots radioed in and asked to make an emergency landing back in Madrid. Air Canada says the plane was experiencing some engine problems after one of the 10 tires on the plane ruptured. Now, we've heard some reports that pieces of that tire got into the engine, but Air Canada has not confirmed that. There are some reports that there were flames seen coming out of those engines, reports from some passengers. In fact, we did speak with one passenger. His name is Aaron Cooper, who was on board that flight. He was very active on social media. Here's what he had to say about what it was like on that flight.
Basically, we just took off. I heard a huge bang in basically just under my seat. So the landing gear, there was some kind of explosion, and it went into the left engine. So I was sitting right there, and so I heard the huge bang, a ton of noise, and then there was fire coming from the engine. I thought maybe I'm the only one that saw that because nobody else was saying anything or doing anything, and I was sitting right next to it. Later, the captain came on and kind of explained the situation and told everybody, to keep calm. The pilot was excellent. The crew was very good, and most people on the plane just probably didn't realize what was happening either. And so most people on the plane were fairly calm. We had a pretty rough landing, but overall, we touched down safe. So that's the main thing.
Now, Cooper also tweeted a video of a fighter jet that was flying alongside the plane, and Spain's defense ministry did confirm that an F-18 fighter jet had been dispatched from a military airport near Madrid to evaluate the damage to that landing gear. In a statement from Air Canada, a spokesperson said the aircraft opted to return to Madrid and circled for about 4 hours to use up fuel and lighten the aircraft for a safe landing. The aircraft, a Boeing 767-300, is designed to operate safely on just one engine, and our pilots are professionally and fully trained for an event like this. Now, Cooper tweeted a video of the landing. Here is what happened on board during that landing.
Remain seated, remain seated.
Yeah, you can bet those passengers, very exciting. They were able to make a safe landing back in Madrid. No reported injuries on board that plane. Passengers were provided with hotels in Madrid, and they've been booked on other flights, Dwight. So it's a happy ending to this story, but obviously, as you mentioned off the top, some very tense and scary moments for those passengers on board that Air Canada flight.
It certainly was. Thank you for that, Greg. Canadians stuck in Wuhan, China are inching closer to returning home. The federal government says a plan to get them out of the quarantine city is in motion. People with family in China are hoping for a quick resolution, but as Nick Bover reports, there are many questions still to be answered.
Over the last number of days, we have been working around the clock.
Much like the coronavirus in Wuhan, the plan to get Canadians out of the city is a complex and rapidly evolving situation. Ottawa says the final goal remains,
which is to protect the health and safety of Canadians here in Canada, but also to protect the health and safety of Canadians who are unfortunately trapped in Wuhan in particular and have no other way to get home.
Ottawa is trying to make that happen by chartering a plane to Wuhan, where 280 Canadian citizens and 24 others have asked for a spot on the flight. They'll then be flown to a military base in Trenton and quarantined there for 2 weeks. Experts say the operation to get people out of China touches on diplomacy and public health, and there's been nothing quite like it in history.
This is unprecedented. No one really has ever had to do this on this scale before, and this is a global scale.
But the Chinese government hasn't approved Ottawa's plan just yet. For starters, Wuhan's airspace is still officially closed, and even if the plane gets there, China will screen passengers and decide who gets to leave.
The cultural difference between Canada and China is huge. Canada will look very, very much at the civil rights of each individual Canadian citizen and probably even resident. China will look at, what is best for the largest number of people.
Ottawa says China has promised that healthy Canadian citizens will be allowed to leave, and so will permanent residents if they are caring for a Canadian child. 15-month-old Chloe Fabich is in exactly that situation. She's been with her grandparents in Wuhan during the outbreak.
Until I receive the official communication, I'm staying cautiously optimistic. I don't want to get my hopes too high just to be crushed later. However, that is a very positive development.
Here in Ontario, public health officials say the number of cases under investigation is slightly down, and the total number of confirmed cases remains at 3. Nick Boisvert, CBC News, Toronto.
China now says 414 people have died from the new virus and about 20,000 others have been infected. 99% of the cases have been on the mainland, and many in Hong Kong want to keep it that way. That's causing fresh headaches for the territory's government. Chris Brown now with that story.
Instead of being inside with their patients today, Hong Kong's healthcare workers were out on the sidewalk on strike and doing what they feel they can to keep the 15 confirmed cases here of the coronavirus from getting any larger.
If they don't close the border and allow the people from China to spread the virus in our community, all Hong Kong citizens and the medical staff will be in danger.
We don't think all the things we have now could stop us from the outburst of the virus.
For many in Hong Kong, the parallels with SARS 17 years ago are frightening. A similar virus crossed over from the mainland, wreaking havoc on the healthcare system and leaving 300 dead. The Beijing-appointed administration had severed some border links with the mainland before today, but many flights from China continued. Still, Chief Executive Carrie Lam seemed to be searching for a compromise when she announced 10 of 13 crossing points would be closed, which should reduce mainland arrivals without damaging the economy, she said.
And because of the inconvenience we have caused to people as a result, so the numbers will come down. And I have proven that the numbers have come down.
I think this is only reasonable to do this.
But a doctor who's part of a coronavirus crisis team told us there are so many unknowns about transmission and the fatality rate that every crossing, land, sea, and air, should be sealed off.
Before there is a massive local outbreak, complete closure of our border is, in my opinion, the only way to save us from oblivion.
There is, of course, a big political dimension to all this. The huge street protests we saw over the summer eroded public confidence in Hong Kong's government, meaning now a lot fewer people are likely to believe Carrie Lam's assurances. Chris Brown, CBC News, Hong Kong.
In China, there are now 2 new hospitals dedicated solely to treating coronavirus patients. The second was completed in just over a week. This time-lapse video gives you a sense of the size and scale of the project. It's a 1,000-bed facility. The hospital was finished yesterday and is already admitting patients today. If you're wondering what exactly is a coronavirus and how it spreads, here's medical contributor Dr. Peter Lin to help us make sense of this ongoing outbreak.
The coronavirus is a family of viruses that can cause as mild things as just a common cold, all the way up to SARS or MERS. These are these bad pneumonias that we're talking about. And basically what these viruses are, they look like a tennis ball with all these spikes sticking out of it. And depending on the type of spike, it allows that virus to attach to certain places. So some viruses, they have the spike that attaches to your nose. So basically you just get a common cold. But the SARS virus and this new virus that we're talking about has the spike that allows it to attach to the cells in your lung. And when it attaches there, it puts in information to make photocopies of itself. So it uses our equipment to make more viruses. Just like all viruses, it needs to reach a target, which is your lung. And it has to get there with your help. It has no feet and no wings. So therefore it needs us to move it there. So that's why we keep saying, don't hang around sneezy people because you're gonna breathe it in. And don't touch your face because that's how the virus is gonna get in. The masks are helpful, but they're not necessary because they're leaky. The ones that you and I buy basically have pockets here, so therefore the virus can get in. What the masks really do is they stop us from touching our face. If you're sick, we tend to mask you, so therefore you're not spewing out the viruses to other people sitting around you. The true people that have the real masks are the N95. Those are sealed. These are for the doctors that may be caring for their patients.
You can watch more of That Explainer, as well as find the very latest information about the coronavirus outbreak online. Just head to cbcnews.ca. On the heels of a shooting at a downtown Airbnb rental that left 3 people dead, the mayor is pledging more money for youth hubs and violence prevention grants in the city's 2020 budget. But as City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly tells us, some critics warn it doesn't go far enough.
From dozens of people killed throughout 2019 to the 3 lives lost on Friday in the City Place shooting, the number of Toronto residents touched by gun violence keeps going up.
Let's get at the root of the crime. It's poverty and lack of opportunity.
Medical student Samir Boulay knows his life could have gone down that path while he was growing up in Rexdale.
And as time goes on, you start hearing about shooting. It starts like a whisper of a friend, then it's like somebody you might, an acquaintance, then it turned out to be my cousin that got shot, then my brother also got shot, and like you just hear about, it just gets closer and closer to you. And then before you even know it, you're in it, right? And it's like you want to do more, you want to be better than it, but it's just all encompassing.
But Boulay didn't get stuck in the cycle of violence.
I was lucky enough to have a mom and an aunt who really took care of me. And after school, I was able to have people study with me sometimes and work with me and make sure that even though I went to school with all these same kids, that little buffer zone I had where I could just not be given everything and not be put into these situations like full-heartedly, and I had some protection.
So this is the arts and crafts room.
Many experts agree giving youth more support can prevent violence later in life. After touring a North York community centre this morning, Mayor John Tory pledged an extra $6 million in budget funding for those kinds of programs.
If you can get one young person in here whose life you turn around and keep them away from an involvement in gangs and guns and drugs, that is a victory for us.
Half the money would go toward creating 14 new youth spaces in rec centres and local libraries, while the other half would create new youth violence prevention grants and other community supports.
Some of it is going towards youth hubs in libraries, which 4 months ago they voted against.
This anti-gun violence advocate believes it's a step in the right direction.
This should have happened many years ago, and it did not happen.
Boulay also worries it's too little, too late.
When you just give us a $6 million pledge or a little bit extra on your $13 billion budget, it doesn't sound like we're the priority. And it just sounds like we're just something extra.
Council is set to approve the 2020 city budget later this month. Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
It's going to be a very busy week on the picket line. Every day, at least one of the major teachers' unions will walk off the job, including a province-wide strike. What you need to know after a look at your weather. And Colette, we know what the calendar says, but it does not feel like February out there. It didn't today anyway.
No, it certainly didn't, Dwight, with the birds chirping and that kind of a temperature that we were seeing. You know, not just here in Toronto with nearly 5 degrees, and these are unofficial daytime highs, but 6 degrees, Hamilton, St. Catharines, 8 degrees back towards Windsor. And we are going to be seeing changes. This was kind of the best day in terms of the warmth, but it's going to be somewhat gradual. So we're going to work our way towards something that feels a little bit more like February. I just want to point out the winds are very, very light at this point, but they've been mostly from a northerly direction, whether it's north, northeast, or northwest. And even with that, we were able to see those temperatures rise as they did today. Now they're coming down, of course, as the sun set earlier at 5:30 today. Those temperatures kind of falling off. So 3 degrees still in Toronto. That's significant. A normal high at this time of year is about -2. All right, a look at the satellite imagery. You see no active weather, and in fact, we'll have a quiet evening. As we get towards the overnight hours, though, we're going to see some energy kind of passing by. Most of it will be just to the south of the GTA and around the Golden Horseshoe. We could get some freezing drizzle there, though, mixing with a little bit of light drizzle and some patchy fog about towards southwest, back towards southwestern Ontario. So some of that lingering into tomorrow morning, some cloud cover hanging in there, too, but getting into sunny breaks or more sunshine further north. The next system that's going to come in and be significant is Wednesday night into Thursday. So I've got more on that coming up. Overnight tonight, though, a very mild overnight low, Dwight, of -1, and then 3 degrees. Yeah, a little more comfortable again tomorrow. 3 degrees are high.
Wow. Thanks, Colette.
You're welcome.
The 3 largest teachers' unions in the province are back on the picket line this week, and as unions ramp up job action, the battle for public opinion is also heating up. Natalie Kalada explains.
No ifs, no buts, no education cuts.
Firm in their convictions and once again on strike.
I think it's important that we do the right thing to support our kids.
We all believe that this fight is worth fighting.
Talks between teachers' unions and the Ministry of Education stalled last week.
It seems like every time the government comes forward to satisfy something, that the union brings it back to what this is increasingly becoming all about, teachers' compensation.
I know the minister likes to say this is about money, but I can tell you that we wouldn't get our 83,000 members out for a 1% pay raise.
This week, from Halton to Peel, Lakehead to Ottawa, and in almost every school board in the Greater Toronto Area, teachers' unions will host rotating strikes, impacting hundreds of thousands of students.
This is a fight for our students.
It's also a fight for public opinion. This weekend, 2 ads in 2 of the country's largest newspapers accused teachers' unions of risking student success and using students as pawns. The ads were placed by a shadowy group called Vaughan Working Families. The group has no online presence. Today, the NDP said the woman posing as a Toronto area mother is actually from Poland. They've written to Elections Ontario asking the commissioner to investigate who is behind the ads.
Look, these ads have all the hallmarks of a Doug Ford smear campaign. They almost use all of their talking points verbatim.
The government denies it's behind the ads.
The government obviously is not involved in any way, shape, or form. It's not something that we put out, not something that we've endorsed.
And what it all signals, says one former Deputy Minister of Education, isn't good.
It could very well escalate into full-blown province-wide strikes.
Tomorrow, ETFO will hold walkouts in 10 boards, so will all public English high school teachers. And Catholic elementary and secondary schools in the province will shut down. Natalie Kalada, CBC News, Toronto.
For a day-to-day, day-by-day breakdown of which boards and which unions are going on strike this week, just head to our website, cbc.ca/Toronto. And the countdown is now on to job action for some of Toronto's outdoor workers. That's because the city's bargaining team requested what's called a no-board report from the Ministry of Labour. They and QP Local 416, which represents outside workers, including garbage collectors, have been in negotiations for more than 4 months. If no deal is reached, work stoppages could begin in 2 weeks. The city says issues include job security, wages, benefits, and parental leave. After the break, why all eyes are on the Hawkeye State tonight.
My first choice is I'm going to go over to Andrew Yang, simply because I think we got to support a diversity candidate.
I'm Bernie all the way.
It all begins in Iowa.
It's primary season and Iowa is up first for the Democrats. The winner there often builds momentum to become the candidate. And how do these caucuses even work? We'll explain next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. It's hard to stop a train.
The first major political test of the 2020 presidential election is on the way in the United States. The Iowa caucuses are being held today as Democrats start the process of picking the candidate who will run against Donald Trump. Katie Simpson is in Des Moines talking with voters.
The Smoky Row coffee shop on the edge of downtown Des Moines is considered a safe space for difficult conversations. Given the deep divisions in the United States right now, few things are more difficult to talk about than politics.
It's kind of become so such an angry environment that people don't really want to discuss politics much amongst their neighbors unless you know, and at work, unless you know it's kind of a safe environment.
Those tensions are on the minds of some voters here and across the state of Iowa as they prepare to caucus, choosing who they will back as the Democratic nominee for president. It's a race that's considered so tight, any of the four frontrunners, Senator Bernie Sanders, former Vice President Joe Biden, former Mayor Pete Buttigieg, or Senator Elizabeth Warren could come out on top.
As far as who I'm going to caucus for, I can't make up my mind, honestly.
Among some of the Democrats we've spoken with, there's a lingering resentment from 2016. Not all of the supporters backing Bernie Sanders then voted for Hillary Clinton, and it was a factor in her loss. Democrats today are trying to create unity with the slogan, vote blue, no matter who.
The climate is that people want to vote for somebody find somebody who's electable to defeat President Trump.
The candidate who wins tonight will emerge with the Iowa advantage. But what could be just as important is whether those who don't have a strong showing call for unity. Katie Simpson, CBC News, Des Moines, Iowa.
Now, it's often said that the Iowa caucuses are not first because they are important, but rather they are important because they are first. Adrian Arsenault explains how they work.
So the Iowa caucuses are not chess, but they are a bit complicated, and they are about choosing a champion. So think of four contenders in their corners and all the pawns in the center as the registered Democratic voters. So the voting is all out in the open. There are no secrets here, and picking your candidate means physically moving to your candidate. In round one of voting, let's say two of the contenders get a pretty healthy proportion of the votes. The other two don't seem to get enough. What's enough? In Iowa, candidates need 15% of the vote to be considered viable. And what if they don't get it? That's why there's a round two. So the two main candidates are sitting pretty. Their voters are locked in. They cannot change their minds. But all the others now have to choose. So they could pick no one and just go home. They could join up and make one of their own candidates viable. Or they could just go to one of the big two. This is where Iowa gets beautifully messy. If you look at the pictures of caucuses past, you'll see that across 1,600 precincts in the state, in churches and schools and gyms.
Richard, look at this room! They should get behind him, too.
People are shouting and wooing and cajoling each other to come over to their candidate's side. A new twist this year, there are only 2 rounds of voting, that's it. And what votes the candidates get here will translate into votes they get at the big national convention this summer. The fact is, though, Iowa does not choose the ultimate Democratic nominee, but it's where the momentum begins, and sometimes there is a very big surprise.
Still ahead, imagine your PIN is stolen or your chip card is compromised and the bank blames you.
At no time did I give anyone my card or my PIN.
To be accused of lying or being a fool, we're neither.
It's happening to a lot of people. Our Go Public team investigation is coming up. Plus,
I'm Farah Morali live at Pickering City Hall, where a meeting is about to get started about a project that has drawn the ire of thousands of Pickering residents. It's a project that would transform the city's waterfront. I'll tell you all about it coming up.
It's a project that could transform Pickering's waterfront by turning a parking lot and boat storage area into condo towers. Council has not yet approved the plan, but it's already facing backlash from thousands of residents. Farah Morelli joins us live from Pickering City Hall now. And Farah, tonight is the last time people can voice their concerns.
It is, Dwight. I'm here in the lobby just outside of the council chambers where this Planning and Development Committee meeting is expected to take place. It doesn't start for roughly another half an hour, but you can already see behind me there's a large crowd that's arrived. The chambers inside are already half full. We're expecting a really large crowd here tonight, and the reason why is just how controversial this project has been since it first was proposed. It hasn't even formally gone before council yet, but more than 14,000 people have already signed an online petition calling for the project to be quashed.
Even in the winter, it's easy to spot wildlife on Pickering's waterfront.
We've got dozens of swans, there's bald eagles, we have snowy owls here.
The impact on those animals is one of the reasons Sean Rickard is fighting this, a proposal to build two 23-story condo towers, a boardwalk and commercial space just steps from the shores of Lake Ontario.
If this goes ahead, you have the boatyard over here.
And it's not just nature Rickard's worried about.
The area is currently zoned for marina and boat storage use. And if they get the go-ahead on this boat storage for many of the boaters that dock in over here is going to be lost.
Passerbys we spoke to had more concerns.
You should see it in the summertime. Just the traffic just trying to get up and down. And how are those, if they do decide to build, how are they going to handle the trucks coming down here and all that?
The parking lot is used by a lot of people like ourselves who like to just come down and enjoy the beautiful nature, and we'd like to see it stay as is.
Here's another major hiccup to anything being built in that parking lot behind me. I want you to take a look over to the right. That is the Pickering Nuclear Generating Station, and for safety reasons, no permanent dwellings, i.e. condos, can be built within 914 meters of any exterior of the reactors, and that project falls right in that zone.
That yellow dotted line shows you the exclusion zone. The area in neon green is where this project would be built. We reached out to Ontario Power Generation about whether that zone can be modified, especially since the plant is supposed to stop operating in 2024. It said it's too early to talk about that, and, quote, any changes would require a safety analysis and licensing safety case to be presented.
I think there's been a lot of conversation going on for about 3 years now in relation to this that the public were not aware of.
Rickard obtained a Freedom of Information document that appears to show the city has been eyeing a change to the nuclear zone as far back as 2016.
There was a question presented as to what could be done with the exclusion zone, and as I said, it's part of a visioning exercise.
Dwight, after we spoke to Mayor Dave Ryan on Friday, he took to Facebook to dismiss what he called rumors that he has been endorsing this project. He said, quote, I share residents' concerns. The bar is extremely high for our waterfront, and I will make this known throughout the process. He also added that the city does have an obligation to look at every proposal that comes its way. So what happens next? The meeting takes place tonight where these residents can share their concerns. After that, it goes to city staff. They have to come up with a report about this project, and then it ultimately goes to city council to be voted on. The mayor told me that he expects that to happen sometime between now and the summer break. Dwight.
Thank you, Farah. The Uber driver who was supposed to pick up Tess Ritchie the night she was murdered testified at the first-degree murder trial of Kaylin Schlater today. Marlon Allenby says he didn't think much of it when Ritchie failed to show up for her requested Uber pool ride on November 25, 2017. The Crown alleges Ritchie wasn't there because Schlater led the 22-year-old to an outdoor stairwell before sexually assaulting and strangling her. Ritchie's body was found in that stairwell in the Church and Wellesley area 4 days later. An Ontario woman says she lost thousands of dollars after unauthorized withdrawals from her account. The bank is blaming her, despite surveillance cameras showing someone else taking her money. And her story isn't unique. As our Go Public team finds out, there are others who feel their bank isn't doing enough to protect them from fraudsters. Rosa Marcatelli now with the details.
Carol and Bill Pitts discovered their CIBC visa was stolen while vacationing in Mexico. They called the bank to report the theft.
He proceeded to say there was the tune of $4,000 on my card, and now my heart is coming through my chest. And I said, well, these are not our charges, these are fraud.
That was the beginning of a battle with their bank to try and get their money back. CIBC decided the couple was liable, saying their chip and PIN were used, accusing them of writing it down or giving it out.
Then I started getting angry because to be accused of lying or being a fool, we're neither.
They say they asked the bank for proof the PIN was used, but were denied. In a similar case, Cleopatra Evelyn Clark also asked her bank for proof and was denied, she says, when someone walked into a Montreal RBC branch and walked out with more than $6,600 of her money. The thief's image was caught on the bank's surveillance cameras, but the bank blamed the customer, saying her debit card and PIN were used.
At no time did I give anyone my card or my PIN. Actually, I was in possession of my card. I know exactly where I was during the time of both transactions.
RBC says it's never seen a case where a chip and PIN card has been successfully counterfeited, but a tech expert says it is possible.
People who adequately protect their PINs are still at risk of having their transactions compromised.
There's no way to know exactly what happened in either the Pitts or Evelyn Clark's case. That's because banks hold all the cards when it comes to fraud investigations, says this consumer protection advocate. He says there is a voluntary rule banks have agreed to follow that puts the onus on them to prove a customer's to blame.
The rules say if the customer disputes the charge, it's up to the bank to show that the PIN was compromised or that the customer was negligent.
RBC says it did follow that rule with Evelyn Clark. Both banks say they investigated thoroughly before coming to a decision. Go Public asked about the security of the chip and PIN system, and CIBC didn't answer the question. RBC insists it is secure. Rosa Marcatelli, CBC News, Calgary.
Remember, if you have a story you would like us to look into, we would love to hear from you. Just send us an email, torontotips@cbc.ca. Still ahead, a Canadian doctor is now a Super Bowl champion. Plus, some other champions give back to our city. Our Raptors are world champions. We've got the Larry O.B. trophy right here to prove it. They are winners of 11 straight in the NBA right now. They have the third best record in the league, so we know they're champions on the court. But did you know that they're also champions off the court? Find out what they're doing here at the Holland Bloorview Kids Rehabilitation Hospital coming up. Kids at Holland Bloorview got a special visit today from the NBA champs. The Raptors hung out with patients at the rehab center. They even brought along the Larry O.B. Championship trophy. Take a look.
Today is so special. A lot of our kids, this is the only place where they're seen and where their differences are celebrated. And to have their heroes here saying that they're important and that they have their back, it means more than you could possibly know. A lot of these children would never be able to go to see a basketball game. And the energy in the building has been palpable all day in anticipation of having these extraordinary role models here.
Carl, you're a dad, man. What's it like being here, kind of lifting the spirits of these young people?
It means the world. It's always important for us to be able to come back and put smiles on kids' faces. If we can do anything to make their lives better, easier, that's what we're out here trying to do, put smiles on some faces and have a good time.
A lot of these kids are going through injuries. How does something like this lift your spirits? Does it make you feel good as you're trying to rehab?
Yeah, I think it gives you a little bit of hope and takes your mind off of whatever it is they're going through. I think rehab sucks for everybody, and we're not excluded from that. So I think that, just like I said, taking some time away from whatever it is, their daily routines. And most of these kids are fans, and they love the team, and they love a lot of us players. So it's good to interact with them, take pictures, autographs, and just have some fun.
So you use each letter of his name, and you wrote something about it. Look at that. Powerful, obedient, watchful, entertainment, lavish, and lovable. That is so cool. And you got to hand it right to him.
Mm-hmm.
How's your day going so far?
Good.
I think you're having a good day, aren't you?
Yeah.
What's it like to be here with these young people today, man?
It's special, when you see what they be going through, and just for us to have a day with them and make them see smiles and all that, it's always a blessing. It always feels good to come back and see how parents and those kids are it's hard for them, and you realize how blessed you are, but you also it feels good to come back and just be able to give back.
High five. We love the Raptors. 11-game win streak. They're playing amazing.
So what do you think of a prediction for our Raptors this year? We're already champions, can't go any higher, but is there a chance that we could get...
We're going to run it back.
Did you just say that?
We're going to run it back.
I'm with you, sir.
100%. We're going to run it back.
I like your attitude. Haven't smiled that much in a long time. So many smiles today brought a lot of joy. Those kids were having a great time with them today at Holland Bloorview. And I know somebody else had a great time yesterday because our Kansas City Chiefs are Super Bowl champions.
Yes. So that's, thank you. Yeah, I was pretty excited about that. I do love my Chiefs, but boy, I love my Raptors as well. And yeah, Norman Powell, he is lovable. That was a great little sign she did there, a card. Did you love the weather today? I like that too. When you're talking about temperatures running way above seasonal, our daytime high today, unofficial daytime high, was closer actually to what it would be in Kansas City at this time of year, and close to for southwestern Ontario, where they were up to nearly 8 degrees, and winds are closer to what Vancouver would be. But these are the current temperatures. The winds have backed off, and they're really quite light. So when we talk about wind chill, there's not much there. It maybe knocks a degree or two off. And in terms of our evening and early overnight hours, we aren't looking at any active weather. Now, things are going to start to change a little bit with some energy that's going to pop through as we go towards tomorrow morning. Now, it may bring a little bit of freezing drizzle or light drizzle activity, even some flurries here towards the GTA, but especially from, say, Hamilton, Burlington, around towards southern portions of the Golden Horseshoe, and that risk for southwestern Ontario as well, again towards tomorrow morning. And then that kind of peels away, so we lose some of that cloud cover, and by afternoon into the GTA, but especially further north, I think we'll see some sunshine. It's going to be harder to find that, though, around the Hamilton, Burlington area and St. Catharines through there towards Niagara Falls. Now, what's going to happen as we go through the day Wednesday? Colder air moves in, kind of a mix of sun and cloud, but late on Wednesday, this next system is going to be approaching, and it looks like it will primarily stay to the south of us, but it actually puts us into the colder air and the snowfall associated with that system then. So we'll be watching that very, very carefully in terms of accumulations Wednesday night for Thursday as well. Overnight tonight, there are your overnight lows, a little bit of light precipitation possible. Tomorrow afternoon, not as mild as today, but 3 degrees is still 5 above seasonal. And then we have to cool down as we go towards Wednesday, and then that snow event potentially for Thursday, Dwight.
You're right. That's some Kansas City temps right there. Thank you, Colette.
Yes, go Chiefs.
Chiefs are Super Bowl champions here in Miami as they win it here in Super Bowl 54.
You heard Colette. That ends a lengthy drought for Kansas City and their fans. It's their first Super Bowl title since 1970, 50 long years, and they did it with the help of a Canadian doctor who graduated from McGill University.
The past 5 weeks, we've been behind on a couple games, so it just show, you know, how resilient we are, and that we're able to come back from any situation. So I think that also helped us stay calm when a lot of people for sure would have panicked.
Laurent Duvernay-Tardif hails from Quebec and plays on the O-line. We asked Montrealers what they think of their local Super Bowl champion.
It's incredible. It was a crazy game, you know. Every time, oh yeah!
It's pretty incredible. The amount of dedication and work it takes to be a professional athlete and a doctor in his case is quite remarkable, and I don't know how that guy sleeps.
The joke I always make is come on, he can't have everything, and he really does. He's a doctor, he's a phenomenal athlete, obviously. The guy's unbelievable.
Not only is great for McGill, but also really puts what he's done so far in his career and his life on show to the whole entire world.
After the break, an acceptance speech turns to a call for change.
I also feel conflicted because so many of my fellow actors that are deserving don't have that same privilege.
Joaquin Phoenix's challenge to the movie industry coming up next.
I also feel conflicted because so many of my fellow actors that are deserving don't have that same privilege. I think that we send a very clear message to people of color that you're not welcome here.
Joaquin Phoenix is making headlines for his acceptance speech after winning Best Actor at last night's BAFTA Film and TV Awards in London. The star of Joker used the moment to criticize the industry for lack of diversity among the nominees. But that's not the only thing that got people talking. There was also a moment where Phoenix met Prince William and gave him a curtsy. William is the president of BAFTA. He also spoke about the need for change, saying the organization takes this issue seriously. Yana Azik joins us now with more on this, getting a lot of reaction to what Joaquin said last night. What are people saying about that?
Yeah, okay, so a lot of people are overwhelmingly saying, great, good for Joaquin to point out the obvious, but it was also, you know, it's noteworthy that some people were making the point, well, if you feel so strongly about it, then how about maybe renouncing your award or, you know, saying a protest or something like that. So it depends on where you stand as far as how, did he go far enough? But either way, everyone agrees he went off script and he decided to say something that he really felt strongly about. That's not something he usually does. And everyone also agreed that it seemed really good that he brought up the fact that he was complicit. He doesn't do enough on set. He's talking about the industry itself taking responsibility, or needing to anyway. I'll give you a look at a couple of other comments, Dwight. Just a few of the ones we pulled off social media. For example, thank you, Joaquin Phoenix, for your honesty, solidarity, and courage. Well done. That one is a reference to great BAFTA speech. And then this one here, another person wrote in to just say an uncomfortable silence filled the hall for a long, noticeable moment. Thank you, Joaquin. Okay, so now let's talk a little bit about that curtsy that you mentioned, because Prince William factors into this too. This is a statement that he ended up putting out. We find ourselves talking again about the need to do more to ensure diversity in the sector and the awards process. And he goes on to say that simply cannot be right in this day and age. Now, that's a bit curious, Dwight, because he is the BAFTA president. If he can't do anything about this, yeah, you know where I'm going with that. Who can?
You're the boss.
Yeah, so that was a weird one in a way, but obviously it is systemic. And just to underscore the point, we're talking about 20 nominees for the top acting categories, all white. So yeah, this is, you know, I keep having this conversation.
Joaquin, I think he may have deserved the award this year because he's winning quite a lot of them.
Yeah, he got Best Actor for Joker, yeah.
People appreciate him using the platform to shine a light on this, right? Because he didn't have to do that. He could have just took his award and gone home.
Well, it's true, it's true. So yeah, people are definitely appreciating that. And it is worth noting that there is one award that ended up going to an actor. It's sort of called the Rising Star Award.
Yep.
And there you get a look at him, because people were saying that it really was interesting because this is the one trophy that's decided by the public. So that went to Black British actor Michael Ward, that you saw there.
Who was great in Top Boy, by the way.
Yes,
I guess that's what he wanted for.
Amazing. And so obviously Harriet is an amazing movie, and we did not see any nomination for Cynthia Erivo. Now, this is what's so curious about this, Dwight, is that she was invited to perform even though she didn't receive a nomination. So she declined, and her people kind of said, yeah, you're kind of missing the point here. I don't get to just perform for you. I'd like to be acknowledged too. So yeah, there was definitely a lot to be desired, clearly. Yes.
Any other award winners last night you want to mention?
Well, a lot of people are going to be talking about this movie, Dwight, 1917. It ended up taking home a lot of hardware, really. It took home Best Picture as well as Best Director for Sam Mendes. I'm going to give you a little bit of a snippet of his acceptance speech.
Thank you, BAFTA, for giving us a really wonderful night. Thank you very, very much. And thank you for all the people who've gone to see this movie in the cinemas. It's still on. Thank you to the crew up there in the gods. Thank you.
Plugging the film to the hilt. Yeah, it's still on. A lot of people really enjoying that one, even though it's dark and deep, obviously, about war. But Vancouver-born Dennis Gassner, he ended up being included on that roster, on that stage there that you saw in terms of the awards, because he was up there for production design. So got some Canadian props in there.
Congratulations, Dennis.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yelena.
See you soon, Dwight.
Oh, I never had such a big birthday. Never, never.
Yes, sir. What this 100-year-old vet wants from you for his big day. Coming up next. 100 cards for 100 years. That's what one Toronto War vet is hoping he'll get for becoming a centenarian. With the help of the internet, his dream looks like it will come true. We visited him almost a month before his big day.
My dad was a private in the Army, and he carried the Bren machine gun. That's what he carried. He was involved in the Italian campaign. He was also involved in the liberation of the Netherlands. He was in World War II. He was in a slit trench, and he would get a letter from his mom. So he would read it at night in the darkness because all the tracers that were going overhead. So he could read them. And then when he moved with us in 2009, the mailman would come, and the mailman didn't get a foot in the door. We would be notified that the mailman is here. So we'd get him the mail, and he would go through it. Any of the flyers that came, he'd be the first ones to go through it. So now he's going to have some birthday cards to go through. We thought 100 because I only posted it online to my friends, but it's gone viral. It was actually this morning, Mr. Doug Ford, he tweeted it. We have relatives, and I've seen some of the posts that have been shared from across Canada. His birthday's on March the 6th. To get these cards from strangers, it's going to be really, really special for Dad and our whole family. For the veterans, just out of this world. They deserve it. They all deserve it. So he knows about it, like we've told him. And we also have a big party planned for him on the day after.
This is a big birthday for you, isn't it?
Darn right.
Yeah.
Oh, I never had such a big birthday. Never.
No.
Never.
100 years.
Yes, sir. It's hard to believe.
Big thank you ahead of time for Dad, because all these veterans in here to me are very special.
A very proud son there, trying to do something really nice for his dad. And I feel like he's going to get more than 100, Colin. What do you think?
I've got ours ready, Dwight.
To send off?
From all of us here at CBC Toronto News. I've got our names on here. I've got the address for those of you who are watching 9 Kenmore Avenue, if you didn't quite catch it in the piece. And I'm going to get us a card, and this will be one of, I think, maybe more than 100.
I think so. We need to send Fred Arcelor a lot of cards for his 100th. Maybe he'll get 1,000. We'll report back. Just a little bit of time left. Another great day in Toronto.
Amazing day. Yes, absolutely. Now it gets a little cooler as we go into tomorrow, but still above seasonal. The high will be about 3 degrees, -1 tonight. A little freezing drizzle possible, mostly south.
You're really popular right now. You know that.
Oh,
These
thanks.
temps. That's it for us for tonight. See you back here tomorrow.